Okay, this video is going to go over autism in females, and we're going to discuss why it's different or why it presents differently, why it's underrecognized and underdiagnosed. And then Mom is going to give us some examples from each category of different traits. So, autism in females, it's frequently underdiagnosed, underrecognized. This is probably because there are a lot of stereotypes. Mom, I don't know about you, but I always thought of Rain Man when I thought
I
of,
did too.
like he doesn't look people in the eye. He's very awkward.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of a genius because remember, there's that one scene.
I actually never watched it. I just saw the scene with him walking and the other guy, his
Tom
brother,
Cruise.
walking with him.
Oh, well, you need to watch that. Yeah, there's a scene where he likes, I think, to read the phone book. It's been a long time since I've seen it. And they are in a restaurant, and this lady comes up to him, the waitress to take their order, and he reads her name, and he recites, I think he calls off her phone number or address from the phone book and stuff. And then Tom Cruise, who plays his brother, is like, oh, that's, how did he do that? Well, that is an example of a stereotype of autism. Sheldon Cooper, which we talked in our other video, is another stereotype about autism, which he's a genius. He's an astrophysicist. So there are some, look, it does this. Oh, I don't know if they can see it on the video, but. So there's some stereotypes about autism that honestly leave a whole lot of people out. And a lot of the representations of autism in popular culture are male. I can't think of any females off the top of my head. The only one I can think of is Dr. Temperance Brennan from Bones.
Yeah.
She's in the show, they just say she's really, really smart, and that's why she's awkward. But I actually think she might be on the spectrum.
Yeah.
So a lot of the criteria that we have were normed over decades of research on autism, but the research was done primarily with boys. Or if women were included, it was in mixed gender studies where it was boys and girls, and the girls that got in there had severe autism, and so we just don't have good criteria right now. So we got missed. Girls and women got missed because we're not, not that we can't be, but not many of us are geniuses, and if you're of average to, average intelligence, they just didn't get you. So that's that. And then the other thing about females and autism is that we tend to internalize our traits so that you can't see them. They call that masking. We're good at hiding the behaviors or traits that might get us more attention. And if you don't want attention, you learn to kind of fit in and people please. We tend to be better at verbal communication. We tend to do better academically. We're much more likely to sit in our seat, follow the rules, and make good grades.
Right.
And then if you're not disruptive to the class and if you make good grades, they don't notice you. They don't care either.
Kinda
right.
ignored.
Right. So I'm going to go through and just explain female traits in different stages of the lifespan.
Okay.
And then I'm going to ask you to give more examples from your handout right here. So in childhood, autistic girls, they're often quiet. They follow the rules at school. They make good grades. They may be socially reserved, but they're usually just described as being shy. They may like playing one-on-one, so they might be described as being loners. They might be described as being dreamers. They may be extra sensitive to clothing or sounds, but they usually are just described as being sensitive.
Right.
Do you read us some other examples?
Well, of course, appears quiet, shy, and compliant, or unusually mature for their age.
Right.
Which goes along with prefers adult company or older children.
Oh, that's true. That's true. A lot will prefer, and actually sometimes they'll prefer the company of adults or children younger than them. And then they're usually explained, well, look how mature they are. They are taking care of the kids. And then we leave them with the kids and stuff. They're babysitters.
And so they may have a selective or rigid eating pattern due to texture or smell.
They can be picky eaters, but again, we'll just say that they're being picky eaters.
Right. Strong sense of justice or rule following.
Yeah. And that's in elementary, middle school. And then what happens is in childhood, those traits, like, they're fine. But as we move into adolescence, our social demands just start increasing. If you think about it, adolescence is the time when, in the normal human lifespan, we start to become more interested in peers and friends and start being less interested in our family. So we tend to branch out. People make more friends. They get boyfriends. And so the social requirements just get more complex. And as that happens, an autistic female's ability to cope with that might not be able to meet those complexities. Does that make sense? So because of that, autistic traits might get more pronounced. But again, because we are internalizers and good at masking, you may not be able to see it, or it may get explained away as something else. So what do you have as examples for middle school and high school?
Heightened self-consciousness and about social performances.
So a lot of social anxiety. I've had a lot of people that will find ways to not go to school.
Develops perfectionism as a coping strategy.
That makes sense. And perfectionism will cause anxiety in and of itself, because perfect doesn't exist.
Difficulty maintaining friendships despite strong desire for connection.
Which is important, because it's hard even for neurotypicals to navigate making friendships. When I was a teacher, I remember having a principal tell me, she was like, how did she put it? Something about how middle school is the worst and 6th grade girls are the worst, because they tend at that age to form a lot of best friends and cliquishness, and then all of the drama starts. And so they start, talking about each other, and then they'll ostracize one who used to be their friend. So they're always forming and reforming friends. And then imagine if you're autistic and you're not good at friendships in the first place. So they might get labeled as just being shy and being a loner.
And uses online spaces to connect more comfortably than in-person settings, which didn't really apply to me when I was young, because there was no such thing as online.
Well, me either. But I've wondered if we didn't become readers. Because we like to read.
We like to read, but it was escapism, and
you didn't have to socialize.
Right.
And you had a good excuse. Nobody will ever tell you to stop reading a book. Everybody's all like, that's wonderful for you. And it is. But.
And they begin masking emotional distress more heavily.
Yeah, especially if emotional distress gets you negative attention, like anxiety or depression, and you don't want attention, then you just hide it. Or if you're embarrassed, because sometimes autistic people are like, well, socializing is supposed to come easy. It doesn't come easy to me. Something's wrong. And you get embarrassed by not having friends or being able to make friends, and so you hide it. So that's childhood, and that's why it's not caught early. But then the problems with autism, it's not like they go away once you hit adulthood. They're still there, they just change. So what happens is, by the time we've become an adult, we've had lots of years usually at internalizing and hiding our autism. And so years of having to internalize and hide your autism and mask it can cause chronic burnout and fatigue. It can cause other problems, more severe, depression, anxiety, people-pleasing behaviors, and it just goes on. Difficulty getting jobs. What other examples do you have?
Avoidance of crowds or noise, lighting, certain work environments.
Can you imagine having to work and do customer service where you were on a phone all day and people called you and you'd have to talk on the phone?
I don't like to talk on the phone.
I don't either. I hate talking on the phone.
A strong emotional empathy paired with overwhelm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Late diagnosis following years of mental health treatment,
Mm-hmm.
which some have and some don't.
Well, and I remembered this because you mentioned it earlier. The reason why that's on there is it's common for women to be misdiagnosed with other disorders before they're diagnosed with autism. So it's very common for them to be diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, dependent personality disorder. I've seen that. They might just say, well, all you have is depression or all you have is social anxiety.
Right.
And you can have social anxiety with autism. You can have depression with autism. You can have dependent personality disorder and borderline personality disorder with autism. You can have PTSD with autism. The problem is that if you are diagnosing those and not getting to the root of the problem, then you're not really helping the person. So
we got rigid personal routines used to manage stress, or delayed recognition of personal needs until crisis or shutdown.
Right. So if you're not diagnosed and you go and are working or volunteering somewhere or going to your kid's school, for even if you don't work, and you have a sensitivity to noise, imagine going to your kid's school and there's all this noise around. Or if you work in an office environment and there's lots of fluorescent lights and you don't like fluorescent lights. The problem is if you don't know that you have autism, you may not be aware that you can tell people, hey, I have a hard time with lights and noise. Can I put on my phones or can we dim the lights? Because you don't know, you can't ask for accommodations.
Yeah, or crowds. Because I thought of it as being claustrophobic, but it was probably autism because at the kids, one of their school things, sitting on the bleachers and I was surrounded by people. And I had to move because I couldn't take it.
Yeah. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. And you can have claustrophobia with autism. But that's the point. You may just think it's claustrophobia when really the root cause is autism. So it's important to get diagnosed and to get an accurate diagnosis because then you can request accommodations. If you know what's causing it, you know what to say, I need this and I don't need that. It just makes your life easier. Are there other examples there that you want to mention?
I think that you kind of went through most of them.
Okay. So finally, just what is important to know is that there are female-specific patterns of autism that are present across the lifespan that are unique to women. And because of that, it results in us being not diagnosed and getting wrong diagnosis. Or not getting all of the correct, some correct diagnosis, but not all the correct diagnosis. So there are some common patterns it's mentioning right here on your handout. Will you read some of those?
Social masking and camouflaging across settings. Rehearsing conversations internally before interactions.
Oh, I do that all the time.
I do too.
Especially if I have to talk on the phone.
Internalizing distress rather than externalizing it.
Right, so hiding that you're anxious because you don't want anybody to know. I do that too.
Strong sense of responsibility for others' emotions.
Yeah. If you're always masked and you're a people pleaser, yeah.
And high rates of co-occurring anxiety, depression, ADHD, or PMDD.
Do you know what PMDD is?
I do not.
It is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So basically, it is severe PMS.
Okay.
So we're looking at each other because earlier we were talking that we don't get PMS. We never have. The emotional part of it that... I remember Roseanne had an episode. Do you remember that episode where they were all making a big deal out of avoiding her? Because she had PMS and she was so difficult to get along with? Yeah, that we don't have that.
Yeah. And feeling unseen or misunderstood by professionals. That's...
You can relate to that?
All in your head.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. So, just for everybody to know, autism is a completely different experience if you're female, and it is very, very, very common for us to not be diagnosed until adulthood, unfortunately. I think it does us disservice. I think if we know in childhood, we can be taught social skills and coping skills, and I think our lives can be much more successful, but that's not happening for us. Okay. And now I have some editing to do because I don't have a button to turn